Hello and welcome to another Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan C.P. Steele and I will be your nerd today and any other day that you watch one of my silly little shows. Hello everybody, how are you? And when I'm recording this, happy Halloween! Obviously, by the time you watch this, Halloween will have already passed. But I still wanted to get that out there and say, I hope everybody has, and when you watch this, had a safe holiday, a fun time giving candy to the kids, or getting candy in the case of viewers that might still do the trick-or-treating thing. I know that Natalie and I will be sitting out out at our porch this evening, giving away piles of sweets to all of our locals and anybody else that happens to pass by. Our kids both are going out to do their own teenager trick-or-treating things with their friends and or significant others. This is the part of reaching parenthood where I have a sad that I'm not out trick-or-treating with my kids, that they don't really, it's not about building a cool costume or anything like that. But I'm also, it's a lot of fun, and I like to see all the little kids enjoying themselves coming up to the porch. It's just it's a good time. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope by the time you watch this video, I hope I had an amazing time and the weather was good and we got to see all kinds of great costumes. So let's jump into the week in Bryan. First off, actually, before we jump into the week in Bryan, I want to make note of this cool Quickstone Sandfruit Festival t-shirt that I'm wearing. I purchased it from my good buddy Keith Baker, the creator of Eberron. He recently released his first Together Studios Eberron campaign book, adventure book, campaign supplement perhaps. I will put a link up to where you can get this shirt to celebrate that. Please go support my buddy, because he's doing really good stuff, and I like to show support to good people doing cool things. But yeah, so week in Bryan. On a personal level, things are doing fine. Still doing the gym thing. Still, I already kind of talked a little bit about what personally is going on, because I talked about Halloween. It's a pretty basic week in the life of Bryan for the purposes of my personal life. Hobby-wise, I actually just signed a hobby/work. I just signed a painting commission to paint a bunch of models based off of STLs on someone's Kickstarter. So I have officially started my printer working on those STLs. It's not running in the background right now, although I should be able to hear it. In the next month or so, I should be painting a bunch of cool stuff. Two things of which I'm very, very excited for, because they are dragons. So they're larger models, and one of them, the paint scheme, because obviously I have to go with the Canon paint schemes, because I'm painting them so they can display them. The paint scheme of that particular dragon is a lot of pinks and purples, and they kind of ombre into each other. So I get to do a bunch of wet blending, and I'm excited. I'm very excited for that paint job. But I need to buy some more resin before I can keep printing some of these dragons. So that's going to be most of my painting hobby time. I do want to paint my Legacy of Worlds character. Not that I'm anticipating needing that miniature for months. I want to have him, and I just want him to be done. I want him to be done, and be be a part of the team. You know, I don't know. Call me weird. So that's really my hobby stuff. Gaming wise, I've been playing some. I'm playing the new stuff in Diablo. And that's really it. Haven't gotten a lot of gaming done that wasn't work related. I know by the time actually no, by our next episode, I will have played in my wife's Land of Monsters game again. But that actually is not until this weekend. So I'm excited for that, but I can't tell you anything about it because it hasn't happened yet. I do know that we leveled in the last game, and I need to actually apply my level 8, and then after that, I need to walk Connor through what he's gonna get for his level 8, or at least sit him down and make him hit the buttons to do said leveling. But either way, I'm excited for the game, and that should be a lot of fun. And then it goes into work. Part of the reason why I left work for last is because there's a lot of it. I've been a very, very busy lad. Mostly, it's starting to get into the holiday season, which means money becomes very tight. I have several birthdays, and then Christmas, and then Thanksgiving. But you know what I mean. There's just a lot. There's a lot that goes on in November and December. So I need to make sure that I am bringing in enough cash flow to take care of my family and to make sure that everybody has a Merry Christmas. Which I know that sounds kind of, but it is Christmas is very, very important to me. Not for the reasons that you might think. It is a holiday that I attach a lot of very, very deep sentiment to, from when I was a kid, and I do my damnedest every year to make sure that it doesn't just go by, that it's not just another, it's a day we got together, ate some food, and unwrap some presents. I always want to try my best to make it stand out in some way. So I took on a bunch of extra gigs to help make that happen. So I mentioned last week that I had officially started with Gaxworks, working on the Wrath of the Seelich stuff for Luke Gygax. That's going well. I am working my way through their manuscript, doing my development paths, making my changes, my questions, my notes and edits and stuff. And then here pretty soon I get to dive into the actual classes and monsters. The thing that they originally had talked to me about on the program is actually the last thing I'm going to do. The first thing I need to do is the dev pass. So that's good. That's a whole lot of fun. I am starting to put down a significant amount of words on the Shadowrun novel, which makes me very happy. After I got the epilogue done, or not the epilogue, if I did the last part first, after I got the prologue done, I sent it out to all of the World of Shadows people, or rather I sent it out to the World of Shadows people that have story chunks in the short story collection, because I wanted to make sure that I was representing them right. Because they're, yes, these characters are technically canon characters. They're technically characters that are part of the Shadowrun universe. But I also know how much personal connection that people make sometimes to these characters. And, excuse me, making sure that they sound right, don't do anything that's, completely, out of character for them. I wanted to make sure that everybody was on board with how things were starting. So I sent them all the prologue, and I got back a bunch of good messages, good comments. And I know that I know in my heart of hearts I'm going in the right direction with them. So I don't question that, but I will still check in with them to make sure, hey, here's your story segment. Is there anything that you would like to see, changed, omitted, or whatnot? Kind of an extra layer of characterization is really kind of what I'm looking at. So that's the Shadowrun novel. Yeah, I lost track of all the stuff that I'm doing. I'm gonna get a couple of playtest games of Xeogenesis in here pretty soon. I just recently put together kind of did a tweak / readjustment of a developmental army list, and I want to get them on the table and start seeing if my numbers make sense. So I'm going to do a couple of those this week. Warzone, we're getting so close to being able to be able to pack everything together. I mean, I keep saying that, and I know that there are a lot of people out there that are like, okay, so close, we'll see you next year. But we're down to just a handful of molds that need to get finished by the fabricators. The book is in its final stages before it goes to print, and print will take only a couple of weeks to get back. The cards are done. We actually Alex already put them on our website. So that and those are the final cards. We've sent them to the printer. Like you're not going to see those units are done. You're not going to see any tweaking or changing until after season 1 or whatnot. If we notice that something needs to be tweaked, but the cards we're sending that out to the printer. The tournament kit is done. I just need them to I need the layout guy to do a final pass to make sure that everything is copacetic with the licensor style. Excuse me. And then I can start sending out the pre-orders that many of you have already pre-ordered, which, by the way, thank you. It is not just a financial thing when it comes to the pre-order. It is also a way for me to know how much of each thing I need to make sure I've got in stock. The extra coins, is it something that I need to order more? It's just good tracking, not to mention the royalties that need to go to the need to go to the licensor. So I really appreciate everybody who's doing the pre-ordering on that, because while supplies last is a general term. When it comes to something like those coins, that's a real big thing, because that's an expensive part of the process, but also time. Like, let's say the coins get sold out. I have no more coins. I will not be able to sell any more tournament kits until I get more coins ordered, and the coins go through Norse Foundry, who go through a fabricator in China, so it will take a while before I get those back in. So that's why I wanted to do this pre-order system, because I didn't want to even remotely risk not having them when the models come out, when the backers get their stuff, and when the retailers get their stuff. So that way people can start planning their events, and there's not oh wow, this game is so much fun, let's run a tournament. How do we do that? Oh, the tournament kits are sold out. So that's I wanted to make sure that I could get as much of that stuff out as possible. Let's see, what else? So Warzone stuff. I know I've got other work. I've got like 6 gigs. I just signed on to do some cool monster creation for the fabulous guys over at Dungeon in a Box. I have been doing monster blocks for them for years, or at least monster blocks for a year or so. Work for them for several years, but they just recently had a Kickstarter for their like monster tamer like class and supplement and kind of not a world setting, but like here's a layer of paint you can put on your world that includes these, this class that goes out and catches and trains monsters to fight against each other. Monsters that you might keep in your pocket. But it's a really cool system. It's a really neat little, a neat class they've come up with and a neat way of doing these monsters. But they have asked me to go ahead and stat out a bunch of their initial wave. So I get to do that here in the next week or so. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I am a big, not that these are related, I am a big Pokemon fan. I haven't played in a long time, but I the love never goes away. So it definitely scratches an interesting itch there, but in a D&D format. Yeah, so, and then Evil Genius has got me up to my eyeballs in adventures. I just finished an adventure called Lumps of Coal, a Christmas-themed holiday heroes adventure, where you are Santa's helpers and you have to come save Christmas. So I think having seen the art assets, and maybe I'm biased, but the concept and the execution and the adventure itself, I think it's going to be a fan favorite. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this and really have a great time with it. The actual supplement itself to show you the ability to play things like Kringlekin and Snowfolk and North Pole elves, and a reindeer. That's right, you can play a magical reindeer. Those rules are they're everyday heroes and intergalactic heroes compliant. So I think that it will be great fun to see if people use these rules outside of the Holiday Heroes adventure. I personally would love to see someone play a gingerbread man in an Everyday Arcana game. When that I think it's gonna be a ton of fun. I think people are gonna really enjoy it. More on that when it becomes available, or if you want to be on the inside track, join the Evil Genius Patreon, because everybody over the Patreon gets kind of first crack at all this stuff. So it's a couple of bucks a month. You should totally check it out. The address, the link to it is in the description of this video. It is, I just realized that when this video comes out, it will technically be November. But I want to admit something. I have not fed all of the comments from October into the Randominator. So I do not have an October raffle winner yet. Next week, I will make sure there is I will feed everything into the Randominator. I will get something spit out, and I will get a comment raffle winner, but it'll be next week. So I am very sorry. I'm very sorry. Because I'm recording on the last day of the month, but it comes out on the first day of the next month. I screwed up. I forgot, guys. I'm sorry. You guys will have to forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me in the comments, because it'll get you, it'll get you locked in for the comment raffle. Also, obviously, like, share, subscribe, do the thing, grow the channel, because I've got a couple of potential sponsors dangling in the winds, and I would love to be able to show them that we are in an upswing of growth to be able to land those sponsorships. And speaking of sponsors, next week, I know I will have something awesome to show you folks. I think we'll do a, not an unboxing. We'll do a sponsorship and then potentially an unboxing if it arrives in time for next week's show. But either way, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. That's the big one. Is subscription numbers and interaction. That's what people love. That's what the algorithm likes, and that's what sponsors look at. Okay, I think that's. Oh, still talking about Evil Genius stuff. Derp. Lost my train of thought. Oh, so Intergalactic Heroes doing great. In fact, just yesterday had an awesome meeting with some of the movers and shakers in that process to set up some very, very cool stuff for when we start putting the final book together. Things are going well on that track. Play tests have been going famously. Super happy with how that whole process is turning out. And if all goes well, I am looking forward to having this first manuscript, done and ready for post-production, very early, maybe late 2024 or early 2025. So very, very happy. Obviously, it's still slotted for release next year. But as it is coming along, I'm over the moon with the fact of how this is coming together. So big thumbs up there. And then it sounds like I am 90%, 90 to 95% sure that I will be going to PAX Unplugged in December. With Evil Genius, but my schedule is going to be pretty packed. I know there's a bunch of stuff that I would normally do when I'm at shows, like stage plays and stuff like that. Unless I can work something out with game masters. If you are a game master, oh yeah, by the way, if you are a game master and you're going to PAX Unplugged and you would love to get a shift or two in with Evil Genius to run some of our events, or give Haley a hand at the booth, that would be awesome. Please reach out to me here or admin at evilgeniusgames.com, because we would love to have some extra hands, and we will discuss the terms of that arrangement with you via email. But I'm hoping to be able to free myself up at least a little bit to be able to do like at least one live play or a panel or something. I like running events and things at games, but it is exhausting if you do it all day, every day. So we'll see. But it looks like I will be going to PAX Unplugged with Evil Genius. So potentially see you there over the weekend of December 6th, 7th, and 8th. So I think that is it for the weekend, Brian. I know it was kind of a long one, but I touched on a bunch of stuff. I wanted to make sure that I got all my bases covered before we move into spooky gaming. All right, so because today's Halloween, I wanted to I wanted to touch on a topic that I've actually done some panels on, and I've been on a couple of podcasts about the use of horror in role-playing games, and there's obviously different levels where you can go, and this is always with the caveat of know your table, talk to your players. if your players are not big fans of gore, like, they don't want to, they don't want to hear graphic depictions of some of the things that can happen to someone when a monster's got hooks for hands. Then you treat it very similarly than to what you would with, like, one of our past episodes. I discussed the RPG consent checklist. And I know a lot of gamers are like, ugh, consent in gaming. I don't view it as necessarily consent in gaming, like, I'm asking your permission to be able to run something at my table. It's more of a, there might be a conversation that we've never had that you don't like something in games. And I just want to avoid, the whole point of us doing this is to have fun at the table and everybody to have a good time. And so those sorts of forms, those sorts of conversations, I think are very important, not in any kind of, like self-censorship or something like that. It's just respectful to your players. And dealing with elements of horror is no different. Because there are lots of different kinds of horror. And I think having that conversation or giving somebody the platform to be able to tell you, no, that bothers me, is super important. And I know in all my convention games, I have people do the RPG consent checklist, because occasionally something pops up that I go, whoa, okay, that's I didn't know that. My friend Sarah, she the showrunner over at Sarah's Table, Gen Con TV. Sarah always has, she's got a handful of caveats where she just straight up at the beginning of every game says, this is how it's going to be. And one of the ones that she talks about no violence toward children, and that I totally get and I totally understand. But recognize that that's a pretty common thing in most of the RPG checklists that I've gotten back from my players. A lot of times there will be a thing that's like, don't harm kids, don't do, please no underage combatants, that kind of thing. But they're the one that Sarah always does is no withholding food as a punishment. And obviously I've never like, tried to psychoanalyze this or anything, but it's not something that I would normally put in my own, like, if I were to be asking my players, hey, here are like the 10 things that I hear the most, that's not one of them. And so the fact that she puts that out there as, I'm not okay with this and it won't be in any of my games, that's something that if it popped up in conversation, it would surprise me. And so talking about using horror in your role-playing games, using, scare factor in role-playing games is, you never know what might be too far for your players. So having that conversation is good, and having and the players feeling like they can have that conversation with their DM, like they don't think that whereas you never want to be a DM and your players are afraid of you, are afraid of, well, I can't let him know that I don't like this because, I'll lose my place at the table, or he'll mistreat me, or she'll make sure that, I'm treated extra careful and I won't get the full experience of the game. It's all about communication. And especially when you're dealing with something as reaction causing, a catalyst for reaction, as horror elements, you don't want that reaction to be bad, because it can leave a lasting echo at that table. The Oh, I always remember. Let's say that you do some kind of jump scare, which, by the way, is hard to do at a role playing table, but I've seen it, and sometimes it can be phenomenal. But if you've got somebody who doesn't like to be startled, or maybe that kind of thing takes them out of the moment, out of planning, out of the game, it might leave a bad impression. They may very well, never really completely invest themselves in the table for the remainder of that session, because they're constantly on the lookout for the next time that you're going to try and do that. Whereas there are games like Dread, which uses a Jenga tower as the game mechanic. A Jenga tower is nothing but one big jump scare waiting to happen. And so you kind of, if you're playing Dread and and you come to the table and there's this Jenga tower sitting in the middle of it, you know that there's going to be an instance at some point where that thing's going to topple and it's going to be loud and crash and no one's going to be expecting it. So it is, what you're getting into in that instance, but there are moments, there's instances where you might, you might be able to, as a DM, quickly move, or maybe you're having a conversation and then use a good onomatopoeia, bang, something to startle everybody at the table, and while you might do that, and it might be a cool effect, you want to make sure that you're not leaving a bad taste in your players' mouths. I know very recently I signed on to help out Point One Games with their initial game system and some of the fleshing out of their world, because the owner of that game company has been playing games with me off and on for over 20 years, and he has stated that I do kind of gross body horror very well. And so one of his factions, the aspects of his world is very twisted and dark and potentially not gross, but it could be. And so that's why he actually reached out to me, is because he's like, I thought you'd be perfect for this because you do that well. I have also had players at my table that are like, ugh, gross, where they don't seem to be necessarily enjoying some of the descriptions that I'm making. But at the end of the sessions or whatever, if I've asked, hey, did I go too far? More often than not, they're like, no, it's just really nasty. If I ever had a player that was like, hey, I can't believe I'm saying this, I don't like mucus. It totally squicks me out. It makes me sick to my stomach. If I knew that, I would avoid that part of those descriptions. I might find different ways to describe it, or if it's really important, I might do something where I use a very fast and not in-depth description in order to make sure that my player is comfortable, but then find something in that same scene to accent and to highlight that isn't the mucus thing. One of those, you've got a problem with mucus, we're not going to talk about that, but I might talk about the slickness of their skin, or the clack of their claws on the pavement. There might be more. There's always more to a scene to describe than just one thing. And if I had a player that is like, ew, gross, mucus freaks me out, and I'm up against, and like the description that I'm the creature that I'm describing, the monster that I'm describing, one of its attacks is basically like a giant, gross, slobbery something. I might focus more on the mouth, or not the slime, but like the sheen of their fur, or the fact that the pavement is wet anywhere that they walk. I won't go into the description of the stuff to avoid possibly upsetting that player, but I'm not going to completely censor it from the universe because one person doesn't enjoy it. I'm just going to find a different way to keep that creepy feeling, to keep the spooky aspect or the horror aspect of the monster, but without leaning in hard on something that my player has mentioned they're not into. I also know that I also think that you can go a little too far with the self-censorship. Where, like, if in that same instance, I've got a player who's like, I don't like mucus. I've got a monster who spits giant mucus globs of acid. A fast GM caveat could be, all I have to do is change the gooey, sticky spit to a flaming, a flaming gob instead of slimy, gross mucus. It's just like kind of, liquid acid, or maybe napalm style fire breath. And yeah, it changes the monster, and it might, you've got to think about any repercussions that it might have based off of, did you give the players something that makes them immune to fire, or is there something like a puzzle that you're hoping that they'll remember the acidic goo that comes out of this thing's nose to melt the bars on the cage, or something like that. You might need to do a little adjustment if you're going to do just a wholesale change of sorts. But there's ways to do that. There's ways to figure out around it. And also there's also ways, if there is only one player that really is just like, I don't like that, and everybody else is okay with it, there's also a way for you to handle it where you can basically not be like, ask the one player to leave or nothing like that, but basically do the whole, okay, I'm going to go into it a little further detail for the rest of the table. You may want to take this time to refill your drink, or maybe take a quick restroom break while I let the rest of the table know a little more about this, and then we can go into it once you return, and kind of spare you from having to deal with my extremely in-depth description. Very recently, a video game, I think it was World of Warcraft, I don't remember, had added a setting to one of its levels for arachnophobes to turn all of the spiders into crabs. Because mechanically, it's obviously very similar. Why are crabs spinning webs? I couldn't tell you. Oh my god. That was weird. I just got hit with a random yawn. I'm not even tired. Weird. I start talking about World of Warcraft and I get sleepy. But I like the concept of hey, if you don't like spiders and this particular section of the world is totally full of them, here's a filter effectively you can put on your game so you don't have to deal with that thing. And while there is a part of me that does kind of roll my eyes a little bit about the inability to overcome, basically by hitting a button and saying, I don't ever want to see this, it is a little ostrich head in the sand. It's a little head in the sand to be like, I don't ever want to see this. I don't want to ever be able to get past this. Just hide it from me. On a personal level, I don't disagree with that, or I don't agree with that. I think that people should want to try and overcome their fears and find ways to strengthen oneself in order to operate in a society. But that being said, I also do know the idea and what it feels like to be irrationally afraid of something. So I would never look at someone and be like, I know you don't want to ever see this, but here, take it. Like, I think there's a fine line, and I think that there's a level of comfort, and especially in something like a video game where no one else, if you're putting this crab filter on your Spider Kingdom, it's not affecting anybody else. It is just you. It is your screen, your computer, your experience. Because no one, just because you hit it doesn't mean that everybody else in your party sees it, as a crab. That unless they turned on that filter on their game. And I don't think that that's, bad, because it's not. You're not imposing your. You're not imposing your fear on everyone around you. You're just handling it in your own way. So I think that that's fine. At a role-playing table, it's a little different, because if you look at the DM and say, absolutely, I do not want to ever see this, I don't want this, I don't want that, and everyone else at the table is okay with it, you are the minority. And while the DM should absolutely work with you to try and figure out how best to handle the situation, planting your feet and being demanding when you're one aspect of the table is also, in my opinion, not cool. The whole table should be a partnership, and that includes working through your hiccups, working through your misgivings and your fears. If it comes down to it, and you're like, no, I just can't budge on this, there can't be any slimy nosed mucus monsters in this game, or I'm not going to be able to sit at this table. There are times where a player just doesn't fit with the game, because let's say that character. I'm going to switch metaphors. Recently, there was a Magic the Gathering expansion set called Bloomborough, and it is all little animals. There are some creepy crawlies, but for the most part, it's like raccoons and squirrels and badgers and otters and rabbits and rats, and you're like, and they're all semi-anthropomorphized. Like they are wearing armor, they've got weapons and whatever. Let's say that you were playing a Bloomborough role-playing game. Everyone at that table is coming to the table. It's Bloomborough land. And one player says, I can't abide by animals in danger. And the DM says, okay, like animals in danger, animal abuse, or animals being hurt. And the DM goes, okay, well, in this world, everybody plays as an animal, and there's going to be combat and stuff. Are you going to be okay with, that? And that player says, there's no way, I cannot see this my wonderful player next to me, his rabbitkin, I can't see that rabbitkin put into peril. Then there is something to be said for the DM telling that player, then maybe this game is not a good fit for you. There's nothing wrong with that part of the conversation. DMs can say no. In fact, I think that they should quite often. But it also shouldn't be malicious. The DM shouldn't be, hearing that, oh, you don't like animal cruelty? Well, here we go. Here's a goblin science farm where they're doing nothing but experimentation. It should be a two-way street. It should be a conversation. And I think that is extremely, bring us back to that topic, I think that's extremely important for using horror aspects in your role-playing games. Because, again, I wouldn't invite someone to my house, throw on Terrifier 3, which is, congratulations, horror fans out there. Congratulations, Doug? I think Douglas is the name of the creator of that series. But it is absolutely just gore for gore's sake with a light story sprinkled on top. It is old school slasher cranked up on meth. But as of this last weekend, it is now the most, Terrifier 3 is the most profitable NC-17 movie in existence. So congrats. I am a fan of the Terrifier series. I know a lot of people aren't. I know that some people, that is just not for them. I think that there's a ton of fun, and you can check your brain at the door in order to just see a horrible semi-demonic clown just ruin everybody's day. But I wouldn't invite a stranger or even a friend over to my house and then go, okay, cool, we're watching Terrifier 3. And especially if they go, I'm not really into horror movies, I'm not going to go, okay, here we go, Terrifier 3. You know, like, it's about communication, it's about respect, and there should be that at the table. This is a little harder to uphold in a convention or one-off setting, because sometimes you do not know the players that are coming to your table, which is why I do the RPG consent checklist, because it is a fast way for me to know that player has some sticky things, or it lets me know, because a lot of times I'll get a player, I would say 90% of the time, the player looks at the RPG checklist and goes, green on everything, I don't care what you do. But just in case, there might be a player out there that does have some specifics. So it's, again, that's a fast, direct, written form of communication, and being a DM, being a GM, it needs to be communication. There has to be. Otherwise, your session and potentially your campaign is going to fall apart. Easy as that. That will be the horror story, is that you've got this game that can't get off the ground because all your players are fighting or uncomfortable, and the DM is an adversary, and it's blah, blah, blah. Horrible. That would be your horror show. I kind of went off topic there. So yeah, introducing horror elements to your game. There's different forms of it. There's, like actual gore, the visceral descriptions of things that are happening to people. There's monster horror and body horror, where you've got transformations, or these kind of eldritch designs that don't really work. I'm a big fan of monsters that have multiple aspects. So like, you're fighting a goblin, and sometime during the fight, he drinks a potion, and his body changes, and he morphs into something else, something more monstrous. Maybe his bones lengthen and become claws and spurs, and his ribs stick out, and he becomes an anti-grappling little creepo. That moment, that kind of initiative 0 between the rounds description of the goblin, turning into this thing, I'm always a big fan of that, because I like seeing the reaction from the players. So I'm a big body horror fan. We already talked about jump scares, and then there's also just thriller. There's not the song, although it is fantastic. There's ways to just keep up the tension, keep your players on their toes. All it takes is one, it's kind of a joke at this point, all it takes is one mimic, and your players will stop trusting things. So you can use mimics, doppelgangers, any kind of shapeshifter. They're great horror elements. True weird monsters like the Otyugh, it's got 3 legs and tentacles and a mouth on top of its head and a weird set of eyeballs. Those sorts of creatures make for good horrific moments. But if you want to add tension is shapeshifters. Tension is a mimic that looks like, a mimic that is maybe not the stereotypical treasure chest. Maybe it's a single, it's a gold coin. You have a mimic, a baby mimic that's a gold coin, that's just in with the pile of loot. And then from there on out, every time that player says that they're buying something or they're paying for something, you go, oh, take a point of damage. And then, from what? There's something sharp in your bag that you cut your finger on. And what in reality, it's the mimic biting them. But they don't need to know that unless they get super careful, or it gets to a point where, it's happened a bunch of times. This baby mimic would have fed enough to graduate, and like one morning they wake up from their rest and all their gold is spilled onto the ground, and the pouch that it normally is contained in is just sitting there, empty. Well, what really has happened is that mimic gold coin baby has grown up and shed its skin or whatever, and is now pouch-sized. So it has transformed into the pouch, maybe ate the old pouch, but it had to spit out all the gold, and now it's ready to move on to the next stage of being able to bite you. And now, instead of every time they pay for something, it's every time that they say they are going for a potion, or they go into their pouch, or for any reason, take a point of damage. Why? There must be some kind of like a thorn or something around the edge of that pouch, and eventually someone might get it. They may eventually figure it out, but it's an interesting and fun way to add that little always be worried. I know that I've done a mimic door going into a dungeon. They fight the door, they kill the door. And from there on out, everything is, I test it with my crowbar, I tap it with my stick, I'm going to open it with my sword. They become so careful and so paranoid that it lets they start casting spells that they wouldn't normally do just to protect themselves against, it adds to the worry of being in this dungeon. A lot of times people just get sucked into their character, like the character's numbers, their build. One of these days I'm going to do an episode about how much I hate that term. But that'll definitely be a rant episode, and I don't want to do that right now. I want to talk about horror stuff. I want to talk about tension and thrillers and keeping your players on their toes. But a lot of times, when it gets to, especially like super mapped out dungeons, or like a sprawling ruin that is, all right, go left. Let's check. Anytime that your players are like, all right, let's just check this room off of the list so we know nothing's there, or we'll deal with what's in there. When it starts to become that, just sort of the dungeon siege mentality of kick open it, almost Munchkin-esque, kick open a door. Is there loot? Are there monsters? All right, next, move to the next door. That takes the tension and the drama and the challenge out of a scene if it just becomes rote. So I like to, at a very early stage, set their expectations that there could be danger that they don't recognize. And things like mimics, any kind of invisible creature, having a doppelganger. I love having the doppelganger prisoner, where like they see the starved, the starved, emaciated captive chained to a wall. Help me. And the guy, and being the good heroes they are, they go and help the guy out. They feed him. They maybe throw, he's like, my clothes are in that basket. They throw his clothes on him, and you've saved the day. And then like 4 rooms later, they find someone who looks a lot like him, not perfectly like him, because there's some desiccation. They find a body, maybe stuffed in a box, or hiding in a closet, or shoved under a bed, and it takes a couple of quick skill checks for them to go, he might be related to the prisoner back there, to Mikey the chained wall guy. And then suddenly Mikey starts acting squirrely, or the oh, you found me out, sudden backstab. Those are moments yeah, they're kind of typical gamerisms in D&D. We've seen those things, mimics and doppelgangers, oh my. But it sometimes those old tropes are exactly what you need to, there's a reason why certain aspects of horror movies and stuff have all done the same thing. Why there is that music crescendo cue. Why the runner or the slashers very rarely are seen running. More often than not, they're just steadily walking towards you. Why there's a different feel between a George Romero shambling zombie and a Zack Snyder running zombie. Neither. There's nothing wrong with either of them. But they have different places and they have different uses, and they're a trope for a reason. Don't be afraid to, if you see a cool horror movie that's got a neat aspect, sit down and figure out how you can gamify that. Is there a creature in the monster manual that you might be able to adapt or just kind of reskin it to be a similar situation as to what you've seen? Animated dolls. Ugh. I mean, Chucky gave us the one of the best animated demon doll movie franchises ever. But I've only done it once, but it was fantastic. I did it in a Ravenloft game, in high school, where there was a row of dilapidated houses, like just dilapidated house, were just effectively like a village in ruin. And then there was one pristine, like there's not even dirt on the walls, bright yellow and white, just flowers in the front, white picket fence. I mean, like it's this picturesque home in the middle of this just squalor. And of course they go in suspicious, and they go in there and they find that it's just a lovely home. Everything looks great, and there's a teapot that it's not going, but there are tea leaves next to it. It's just this wonderful place. And then they find the sitting room, and the sitting room is littered with dolls, little porcelain dolls of various makes and models. And this one, oh look, it's like he's a little porcelain doll coal miner, and it's just all over the place. And in the room, all it takes is for you to say there is a single like a rocking chair in the middle of the room, and it is empty. All the rest of the seats, everything else has got people in it, or has got dolls in it. This place is just it is standing room only, except there's one full size or like doll size rocking chair in the middle of the room, and it is empty. And you have your players do a perception check or an investigation, and they can see the outline of like some kind of object, basically like a butt, an outline of something seated in that chair, where like the dust has settled around it, but there is no dust where something has got up from there. And that's all it takes for them to now officially hate every doll in the room, be afraid of everything that moves for the remainder of this village, and whether or not it ever comes to fruition, that's up to you. As a DM, that is completely up to you to decide whether or not is there an animated doll? Is there just like a freaky little kobold doll maker? Who knows what left the butt print in the chair? Maybe nothing. You just give them this unbelievably weird backdrop to just build up their paranoia, build up their fear and their tension, for you to then maybe pop the bubble in a different way, or use that build-up to walk into the next big scene, where maybe there's a witch that has cursed the village to become dolls, and that is her dollhouse, where she stores the villagers. Whatever. You've got all kinds of plans. You've got all kinds of things to do, and you can take that homage and that inspiration from anywhere. And I do believe that one of the best things to do, if you aren't comfortable writing your own horrific moments, your own horror tropes, or your own horror plot lines, is read and or watch just some horror movies. Just find some B movies. Whether it's an old Universal Monsters, film, those plots still carry. They still work. They work for a reason. They're classics for a reason. And you should be able, if you can find a nice way to equate that in your game, you should be able to reflect that and get the same kind of horror movie reaction out of your players. Which is honestly, if you're trying to use those horror elements, that's the goal. Is you want the players to feel outsider looking in, to feel like the people in the movie dealing with the horror elements, maybe without all of the periodic deaths that don't, you know what I mean there. But you want that reaction, you want that that interaction, and hopefully, like when the credits roll on the session, what you want is your players to look at you and go, oh my gosh, that was crazy. That absolutely threw us for a loop. I was on the edge of my seat. All of the same reactions that you want out of an audience from a horror movie or show, or you're reading a horror novel or something. All those same reactions, if you're using those elements to enhance your game, that's what you want your players, or if it's a stage game, your audience, that's what you want them to react to. And you want them to get that same feeling, that same walk away from the story going, oh my gosh, my adrenaline is so spiked because of all of that. That's the whole point we do this. And that's the way to use those elements in your game, in my opinion. I just looked at the clock. We are running a little over. So and right about this is about the time that I like to find that wrap-up point. So let's leave you with this. Using horror in your games is awesome. If it's good for your table, that is, obviously. While there are so many different aspects of horror, you want to find the one that works for you as a DM, and for your players as part of your experience. You want to make sure that that all of that stuff runs smoothly, and I think you'll get a much better reaction and a much better feel out of the table if everybody's on board, or if you're on board with, you're aware of the different levels of on board your players might be. My biggest piece of advice is there's a reason why the horror movie genre, why the horror genre exists in mass media, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that those plot lines, those stories, those hooks, sometimes literally, they have been used and reused again and again and again for a reason. It's time tested, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with using something that is time tested and adjusting it for your table. And I think horror is a very good way to do that. So, happy Halloween to all of you. Please be safe. Don't eat too much candy. Diabetes is a killer. Just be safe. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. Easy to do on Halloween. Just be safe, and make sure the kids are safe out there, and just try and leave every room or neighbor's porch happier than when you got there, and I think the world will be a better place. So until next week, have fun and play some games. You know I will. Bye, guys.